First contact and desperate call. The archive keeper Celery floated before the crystalline records, her luminescent tendrils pulsing with anxiety as she reviewed the data for the 1000th time. The signal was unmistakable, primitive radio waves carrying complex mathematical sequences originating from a backwater spiral arm of the Milky Way. Under normal circumstances, such a discovery would have been merely cataloged and forgotten, filed away in the vast knowledge banks of the Aetheri Collective. But these were not normal circumstances. The Nexus Collective's warships had already consumed 3 of the Aetheri's core worlds. Their biomechanical vessels, each the size of a small moon, had torn through the Aetheri's defensive networks as if they were gossamer. The Aetheri, for all their advanced technology and 10,000 years of peaceful expansion, had no answer to the Nexus's ruthless efficiency. High Council, Celery's voice resonated through the chamber's crystalline walls. I believe I have found our salvation, though you may question my sanity. The 7 members of the Aetheri High Council materialized around her, their ethereal forms shimmering with the collected wisdom of centuries. First Speaker Vental's form pulsed with impatience. Speak quickly, Archive Keeper. The Nexus fleet advances on Celestial Haven as we deliberate. Celery projected the signal data into the center of their gathering. These transmissions come from a species that calls themselves humans. They are young, barely 1,000 years into their technological age. Their civilization is confined to a single planet and its satellite. You waste our time with primitives. Third Speaker Carolyn flared with dismissal. What could such beings offer against the Nexus? Celery's tendrils whipped with excitement. That is precisely why they are perfect. The Nexus Collective conquers through technological superiority, overwhelming ancient defenses and turning our own advanced systems against us. But these humans... She expanded the display, showing primitive combustion engines, basic projectile weapons, and early space vehicles. They fight with technology so basic that the Nexus cannot corrupt it. Primitive weapons against planet killers. Fifth Speaker Marin scoffed. The suggestion is absurd. Look deeper, Celery insisted, bringing up her most fascinating discoveries. In the past century alone, they have advanced from ground-bound creatures to reaching their star system's edge. They have split the atom, begun to harness quantum mechanics, and show remarkable adaptability. But most importantly, she highlighted numerous transmissions intercepted from their entertainment broadcasts, military histories, and scientific journals. They possess something I've never seen in any species we've encountered, an absolutely irrational refusal to accept defeat. The Council studied the data in silence. They watched humans survive in environments that should have killed them, overcome technological limitations through sheer determination, and exhibit a creativity that bordered on madness. They have a saying, Celery continued, necessity is the mother of invention. When faced with overwhelming odds, they don't surrender, they innovate. They adapt. They overcome. The Nexus has never faced a species like this because nothing in their strategic databanks can predict what humans might do. First Speaker Vental's form pulsed thoughtfully. You suggest we ask these humans, these beings who have never left their solar system, to fight an enemy that has conquered 1,000 worlds. Yes, Celery's response was immediate. Because they will do what no other species would consider. They will find a way to win even when victory is mathematically impossible. The council chambers fell silent except for the subtle harmonics of their communal thinking. The Nexus Collective had crushed every conventional defense, outsmarted every strategic AI, and corrupted every advanced weapon system thrown against them. Perhaps, Celery thought, it was time for an unconventional approach. There is another factor, she added softly. I've analyzed their response patterns to fictional scenarios involving alien contact. They possess an unusually strong drive to protect others, even at great cost to themselves. If we approach them not as superiors seeking servants, but as equals asking for help. First Speaker Vental interrupted, his form brightening with decision. The Nexus fleet will reach Celestial Haven in 30 rotations. We have nothing left to lose. His energy field expanded, encompassing the Council in his authority. Archive Keeper Celery, you will lead a delegation to Earth immediately. If these humans are as innovative as you suggest, we must secure their alliance before the Nexus discovers them first. As the Council dispersed, Celery began composing the first contact message. How does one ask a primitive species to save an advanced civilization? Perhaps, she mused, that was exactly the kind of impossible challenge these humans would find irresistible. What she couldn't know was that humanity's response would soon become legendary across the galaxy, and the phrase human tactics would eventually make even the Nexus Collective's strongest warriors tremble. The first step toward that legend was about to begin. The human response. The United Nations Security Council chamber had never been so silent. On the massive display screen, the holographic form of Archive Keeper Celery hung like a bioluminescent phantom, her message still echoing in the minds of every delegate present. Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force gripped the edge of her podium, her knuckles white. Like everyone else in the room, she was struggling to process the implications of what they'd just heard. An advanced alien civilization was asking Earth, humanity with its fledgling space program and relatively primitive technology, for military aid against an even more advanced enemy. Let me ensure I understand correctly, Admiral Chen spoke, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Your civilization, the Etheric Collective, has lost 3 core worlds to these Nexus beings. You possess technology that's centuries beyond ours, yet you're coming to us for help. Celery's tendrils pulsed with what the translation matrix indicated was affirmation. Precisely because you are centuries behind us, Admiral. The Nexus Collective's strength lies in corrupting advanced technology. They have never encountered a species that relies so heavily on what you call brute force methods. The Russian delegate couldn't suppress a laugh. So our obsolescence is our advantage. Your unpredictability is your advantage, Celery corrected. Our predictive models show the Nexus will have no reference point for human military doctrine. You achieve objectives in ways that defy conventional logic. Admiral Chen thoughtfully tapped her tablet, bringing up the technical specifications the Aetheri had provided. The Nexus ships were massive, like biomechanical moons, capable of consuming entire planetary defense systems. Their neural networks could hack and corrupt any advanced AI or computer system in seconds. But they'd never faced electromagnetically hardened equipment or simple mechanical systems that couldn't be hacked. They'd never encountered railguns or nuclear weapons or the sheer stubborn ingenuity of human engineers with their backs against the wall. How long do we have? She asked. 27 Earth days until they reach our last major world, Celestial Haven. Murmurs filled the chamber. 27 days to prepare for an interstellar war against an enemy that had already conquered multiple advanced civilizations. Admiral Chen straightened her uniform. Madam Secretary General, I request immediate implementation of the Threshold Protocol. The Secretary General's eyes widened. The Threshold Protocol was designed for theoretical first contact scenarios. It's never been tested. It's designed for exactly this situation. Chen interrupted. Total mobilization of Earth's industrial and military resources under a unified command structure. We've drilled for this. Every major nation has signed the accords. We can be ready. Ready? The British delegate scoffed. Ready for what? To fight an enemy that treats starships like toys. Chen's response was sharp. Ready to show them why you should never back humans into a corner. She turned to face the assembly. We're not bound by conventional military doctrine. We're not limited by centuries of established tactical protocols. Every disadvantage the Aetheri see in our technology is an opportunity to do something the Nexus won't expect. She projected her tablet's display onto the main screen, showing preliminary designs that her staff had been frantically sketching during the briefing. Look at these Nexus ships, massive, complex, dependent on advanced AI. They're expecting equally massive, equally complex opponents. Instead, we give them swarms of small, manually operated craft. They're looking for quantum computers to hack. We give them hardened analog systems and human pilots. The Chinese delegate leaned forward. You're suggesting we fight a space war with technology barely more advanced than World War I? I'm suggesting we fight it like humans. Chen's eyes blazed with intensity. We have 27 days. Every shipyard, every factory, every research lab on Earth working in concert. We can't match their technology, but we can overwhelm them with methods they've never seen. Seldery's form pulsed with what seemed like hope. You believe you can be ready in so short a time. Archive Keeper. Chen smiled grimly. Humanity's greatest advances have always come when someone told us we didn't have enough time. She turned to the Secretary General. The Threshold Protocol includes emergency conscription of civilian resources. Elon Musk's Mars fleet. It becomes our first deep space strike force. Jeff Bezos's orbital factories. Now their warship assembly lines. Every nation's space program. Every private company's resources, all working toward one goal. The Secretary General studied the room, reading the shift in atmosphere. The initial shock was being replaced by something else, that uniquely human combination of determination and barely controlled chaos that had taken them from the Wright brothers to the moon in just 66 years. All in favor of implementing the Threshold Protocol. Raise your hands. The vote was unanimous. Archive Keeper Sellery. The Secretary General announced, humanity accepts your request for aid. Admiral Chen, you have operational authority under the protocol. What's your first order? Chen's reply was immediate. Tell every engineering team on Earth that the impossible just became mandatory. We have 27 days to revolutionize warfare. She paused, allowing herself a slight smile. And someone get me Elon Musk on the phone. I want to know how fast he can modify those Mars rockets to carry nuclear warheads. As the chamber erupted into activity, Seldery watched with growing amazement. The Aetheri had expected resistance, debate, perhaps even refusal. Instead, these humans were treating the impossible deadline as an exciting challenge. Perhaps, she thought, there was hope after all. Unconventional warfare. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the HMS Dreadnought, formerly a SpaceX Mars colonial transport, now hastily retrofitted into humanity's first interstellar warship. The vessel's hull was wrapped in layers of primitive but effective Faraday shielding, protecting its vital systems from the Nexus Collective's infamous cyber warfare. Status report on the Nexus fleet, she demanded, watching the holographic display provided by Aetheri technology. 5 biomechanical vessels, each approximately 300 kilometers in diameter, approaching Celestial Haven, her XO reported. They're ignoring us completely. Maya allowed herself a grim smile. Of course they were. To the Nexus Collective, humanity's hastily assembled fleet must look like children's toys, crude chemical rockets and retrofitted space stations, barely worthy of notice. That was exactly what they were counting on. All ships, execute Operation Trojan Horse, Maya commanded. Remember your training. Keep systems minimal until my mark. Let them think we're as primitive as we look. Across the fleet, over 300 ships, everything humanity could launch in 27 days. Acknowledged. The vessels were a motley collection. Converted Mars ships, repurposed space stations, and hastily constructed gunboats. Each one was crewed by pilots who'd trained in simulators for a mere 3 weeks, operating equipment that had been theoretical until a month ago. The Nexus vessels continued their approach to Celestial Haven, their massive forms casting shadows across space itself. Their surface rippled with biomechanical activity, preparing to absorb and corrupt another world's defenses. They're within range, Maya's tactical officer announced. Still no sign they consider us a threat. Why would they? Maya muttered. We're just primitives with chemical rockets. She keyed her fleet-wide channel. All ships, execute Phase 1. Across the human fleet, panels dropped away from seemingly crude rocket housings, revealing rows of electromagnetically launched projectiles. Simple tungsten rods accelerated to relativistic speeds. No complex guidance systems for the Nexus to hack, no advanced technology to corrupt. Just basic physics applied with deadly precision. The first salvo struck the lead Nexus vessel before its sensors even registered the attack as a threat. Thousands of hypervelocity projectiles tore through its biomechanical shell, creating devastating cavitation damage. The Nexus ship's surface writhed in apparent pain. Phase 2, Maya ordered. Show them what else primitives can do. From the rear of the human fleet, converted cargo vessels launched their payloads, thousands of small, independently operated drones. Each one was piloted remotely by a human operator back on Earth, using quantum entanglement communicators provided by the HFY. The drones were practically ancient technology by galactic standards, running on hardened analog systems that were immune to digital warfare. The Nexus fleet finally responded, their massive ships turning to face the unexpected threat. Energy weapons capable of destroying advanced warships lashed out, but the human fleet was too dispersed, too numerous, and too unpredictable to target effectively. "They're trying to hack our systems," the communications officer reported with a hint of satisfaction. "Having trouble with our primitive technology, aren't they?" Maya nodded. The Nexus's neural networks were designed to corrupt quantum computers and advanced AI systems. Instead, they were facing toggle switches, analog circuits, and human pilots making split-second decisions that no algorithm could predict. "Launch the special packages," Maya commanded. "Let's see how their biomechanical systems handle a dose of good old-fashioned radiation." Nuclear weapons, crude and devastating, detonated in carefully calculated patterns around the Nexus vessels. The electromagnetic pulses played havoc with their sensitive biomechanical systems, while the radiation began to disrupt their neural networks. The largest Nexus ship suddenly shuddered, its surface rippling chaotically. "Ma'am," her science officer called out, "we're detecting some kind of chain reaction in their biological components. The radiation, it's causing their neural networks to attack themselves." All ships pressed the advantage, Maya ordered. "Concentrate fire on the damaged sections. Show them what happens when they underestimate primitive humans." The battle that followed would be studied in war colleges across the galaxy for centuries to come. Human ships darted between the massive Nexus vessels like mosquitoes attacking elephants, their obsolete weapons proving devastatingly effective against an enemy that had no defense against such basic attacks. When the lead Nexus ship finally erupted in a spectacular explosion, its biomechanical form torn apart by the combined effects of radiation, kinetic impacts, and its own corrupted neural network, a cheer went up across the human fleet. "One down," Maya announced, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. "4 to go. Let's show the galaxy why you should never dismiss humans as primitive." From her observation post on Celestial Haven, Archive Keeper Celery watched in amazement as humanity's primitive fleet systematically dismantled the most feared warships in the galaxy. The HFY had spent millennia advancing their technology, only to watch humans triumph using principles that predated spaceflight. The galaxy would never be the same after this day, and the legend of humanity's primitive warfare was only beginning. The breaking point. The celebration aboard the HMS Dreadnought was short-lived. As the debris of the first defeated Nexus vessel scattered across space, the remaining 4 ships began to change. Their biomechanical surfaces rippled and merged, combining into something that made Captain Maya Rodriguez's blood run cold. "All ships, fall back," she ordered, watching as the Nexus vessels transformed into a single massive entity nearly the size of Earth's moon. "Celery, what are we looking at?" The HFY Archive Keeper's holographic form pulsed with terror. "The convergence. We thought it was just a rumor. The Nexus Collective's ultimate weapon. They're combining their neural networks into a single consciousness." The massive combined entity pulsed with dark energy. A wave of quantum disruption swept across space, instantly disabling every piece of advanced technology it touched. The ethereal defense platforms around Celestial Haven went dark. Even the quantum entanglement communicators fell silent. "Status report," Maya demanded. "We've lost all ethereal tech," her XO reported. "Quantum systems are dead, but our basic systems are still functioning. Radio, chemical thrusters, analog targeting." Maya gripped her command chair. This was why the Nexus had been undefeated. Any civilization advanced enough to achieve interstellar travel would be completely helpless against this weapon. But humanity, with their primitive technology, could still fight. "Get me Admiral Chen. Use the old-fashioned radio bands." The Admiral's voice crackled through speakers that would have been familiar to World War I operators. "Captain Rodriguez, I'm seeing the data. That thing's generating enough energy to tear Celestial Haven apart." "Mom, permission to try something insane." There was a pause. The best human traditions involve doing something insane when backed into a corner. "What's your plan?" Maya pulled up the hastily drawn schematics on her tablet. "We've been fighting them with our technological limitations, but there's one human tradition we haven't tried yet, turning their strength against them." She explained her plan quickly. Admiral Chen's response was immediate. "Do it. We've got nothing left to lose." Maya turned to her crew. "All ships, this is Captain Rodriguez. What we're about to attempt goes against every rule of space combat, which means it's exactly what humans do best." She laid out the plan. It was ridiculous, impossible, and exactly the kind of thing that no advanced civilization would ever consider. It was, in other words, perfectly human. The remaining human fleet split into 3 groups. The first began launching every nuclear weapon they had, not at the convergence, but in a precise pattern around it. The electromagnetic pulses created a web of disruption that the massive entity had to constantly adapt to. The second group did something even more outrageous. They began dumping their water reserves into space, letting it freeze instantly into clouds of ice crystals. The convergence's energy weapons superheat the ice, creating massive steam clouds that obscured traditional sensors. "They're going to adapt to this," Maya's tactical officer warned. "That's exactly what we want," Maya replied. "Let them focus their entire neural network on handling our primitive attacks." The convergence was indeed adapting, its massive form shifting and pulsing as it dealt with the radiation and steam. Its neural network, now a single massive consciousness, was fully engaged in countering these seemingly futile human tactics. That's when Maya gave the order for Phase 3. The third group of ships, led by the Dreadnought, had been quietly moving into position. Their cargo bays were filled with something the Nexus would never have considered a weapon: bacterial cultures from Earth's deepest ocean vents, organisms that thrived on radiation and extreme conditions. "All ships, release the packages," Maya ordered, "and may Darwin forgive us for what we're about to do to evolution." The bacterial cultures, exposed to the intense radiation from the nuclear detonations and the extreme conditions of space, began to do what life from Earth did best: adapt. The convergence's biomechanical surface, already stressed from dealing with multiple threats, provided a perfect growth medium. "It's working," the science officer shouted. "The bacteria are metabolizing their neural pathways. Their biological components are treating our microbes like an infection." The convergence's surface began to convulse. The massive consciousness that made it invincible was now working against it, spreading the infection through its own neural network in an attempt to fight it. "All ships, clear the area," Maya ordered. "Let evolution take its course." What followed was perhaps the strangest battle in galactic history. The most advanced weapon ever created was being defeated by some of the simplest organisms in existence, supercharged by radiation and human ingenuity. The convergence's attempts to adapt only made things worse. Every change in its biomechanical structure was met with corresponding evolution from the Earth bacteria, driven by the extreme conditions and radiation. It was a microscopic arms race that the Nexus, for all its technology, was losing. From her observation post, Celery watched in stunned amazement. They turned microbes into a weapon. They deliberately created an evolutionary arms race in space. Her tendrils pulsed with what might have been laughter. No wonder the Nexus couldn't predict human tactics. Who would ever think of this? The Convergence's death throes were spectacular. Its massive form broke apart, its neural network corrupted not by advanced technology, but by the most basic principle of Earth life: adapt or die. As the threat literally dissolved before their eyes, Maya slumped in her chair. "Get me Admiral Chen," she ordered. "Tell her Operation Petri Dish was a success, and someone remind me to thank my high school biology teacher if we survive this." The galaxy would never forget the day humans defeated the most advanced weapon ever created using bacteria and radiation. But more importantly, they would never forget the lesson. Sometimes the most primitive solution is the most effective one. Legacy of Terra. 5 years after the Battle of Celestial Haven, the Galactic Council chamber hummed with anticipation. Representatives from 1,000 civilizations gathered to witness something unprecedented: the admission of humanity to the Council, the fastest ascension in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chen, now Earth's first galactic representative, stood before the assembled species with archive keeper Celery floating beside her. The chamber's walls displayed holographic recordings of humanity's victory over the Nexus Collective, a victory that had fundamentally changed galactic warfare and civilization itself. The humans, Celery addressed the Council, her tendrils glowing with formal dignity, did more than save the Ethery. They showed us all the truth we had forgotten in our rush toward technological advancement. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most elegant one. The Supreme Counselor, a being of pure energy, spoke. In 5 years since their victory, human influence has spread far beyond military matters. Would you elaborate on this, Admiral Chen? Sarah stepped forward, her dress uniform adorned with both Earth and Ethery medals. When we defeated the Nexus Collective, we realized something crucial. The galaxy had become too dependent on advanced technology. Every civilization was so focused on moving forward that they forgot the value of looking back. She gestured to the various delegates. Since then, human engineers have worked with 50 different species to develop hybrid technology, combining advanced systems with simple, reliable backups. We call it the backup brain principle. The displays showed new ships being constructed across the galaxy, vessels that combined quantum computers with analog systems, advanced AI with simple mechanical controls. Civilization after civilization had adopted what they now called the human doctrine: never rely on a single system, no matter how advanced it might be. But perhaps more significant, Sarah continued, was the cultural impact. Humanity's victory changed how the galaxy views progress itself. Indeed, in the 5 years since the battle, a renaissance of primitive arts and sciences had swept the galaxy. Species that had abandoned physical books millennia ago were rediscovering the joy of paper and ink. Civilizations that had relied entirely on AI for creative works were exploring manual artistry again. The Nexus Collective believed that advancing meant abandoning the past. Sarah explained. We showed the galaxy that true advancement means building upon it instead. Every human technology, from our simplest tools to our most complex machines, still relies on basic principles we discovered thousands of years ago. A ripple of agreement passed through the chamber. The Nexus Collective's remnants had been found 6 months ago, hidden in deep space. They had died not from weapons, but from their own evolution. Their biomechanical systems had become so complex, so dependent on advanced technology, that they couldn't sustain themselves. There is another matter to discuss, the Supreme Counselor announced. The term human tactics has entered common usage across the galaxy. For some, it means using primitive solutions to solve advanced problems. For others, it refers to the tendency to find unconventional approaches to impossible situations. Sarah smiled. On Earth, we have a saying: Necessity is the mother of invention. When faced with an impossible situation, humans don't just think outside the box. We forget the box exists. We've taught our children for generations that no problem is unsolvable. You just haven't found the right approach yet. And this is why. Celery added, we propose not just admitting humanity to the Council, but establishing a new galactic defense protocol based on human principles. Every civilization maintaining both advanced and basic systems. Every species training not just in new technology, but in fundamental principles. The vote was unanimous. As Sarah signed the accession treaties, she reflected on how far humanity had come. 5 years ago, they were considered primitives, barely worth noticing. Now, their primitive approaches were revolutionizing a galaxy that had grown too dependent on advancement for advancement's sake. There's one more thing, Sarah addressed the Council. Earth has established a new academic institution, the Galactic Institute of Fundamental Sciences. We're inviting students from every civilization to study not just advanced technology, but the basic principles behind it. Because as we proved against the Nexus, sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the most advanced one. It's understanding the fundamental forces that make advanced technology possible in the first place. As the chamber erupted in approval, Celery's tendrils brushed Sarah's shoulder in the ethery equivalent of a smile. You humans never cease to amaze us. Who would have thought that going back to basics would be the most revolutionary act of all? That's the thing about humans, Sarah replied, watching as delegates from across the galaxy mingled, sharing ideas about combining old and new technologies. We never forgot that every advanced civilization started with sticks and stones. And sometimes, when all your advanced technology fails, a well-thrown stone is exactly what you need. The legacy of Terra, it seemed, would be teaching the galaxy that true advancement doesn't mean abandoning your foundations. It means building upon them. And somewhere out there, other threats might be lurking in the darkness between the stars. But now, thanks to humanity's influence, civilization would face them with both the wisdom of the past and the technology of the future. After all, as humans had proven, the best solution isn't always the most advanced one. It's the one that works.